So far in this quadratic functions unit, we have talked about the different types of functions, the vertex form, factored form, and standard form. And we talked about how to write functions in each of those forms. And then we talked about how to graph functions in each of those forms. And last week we started thinking about how to look at an equation and know what each form, like what information each form gives us. For example, vertex form gives us the vertex pretty easily. Factored form gives us the two solutions. And standard form gives us the y-intercept, the c value. Today we're going to start talking about how to convert between the forms, because if you, for example, have a factored form function but you want to know what the y-intercept is, if you convert it to standard form, you'll easily know what that is. So today we're talking about how to convert functions from factored form to standard form. And to do that, you can either use the distributive property or the box method. They both get the job done, and each one has perks, and it's totally a preference. Some students tend to like the distributive property better, and other students tend to like the box method better. So it's totally up to you. We're first going to do all four of these examples with the distributive property. Then we're going to go back through and do them with the box method, so you can see all of them with both, and then you can just decide which one you like better and use that method. So for the distributive property, what we do is usually you're used to seeing the distributive property from middle school when it's just like one number times several things in parentheses. So you take this and you multiply the 1 by each of the things in the other, like so 1 times x and 1 times -5. But now we're going to talk about kind of like a supercharged distributive property. We're going to do that with the x. We're going to multiply the x by both of those over there in that second set. And then we're going to go back and do the 1 by both of those. So let's start with the x. So x times x gives us x squared. And x times -5 gives us -5x. And then we're going to do the 1. So 1 times x and then 1 times -5. So 1 times x is a positive 1x. And 1 times -5 is -5. Now we're almost done, except if you notice these two middle terms here, both have just a plain x in them. They're not x squared, and they both have an x. It's not like this one out here with no x, which means these are like terms. So you can combine them. So really this is x squared, and then -5x plus 1x is actually -4x minus 5. Now let's try this one. What we're going to do is we're going to ignore the 2 for right now. We're not going to do anything with that. So we're just going to write it down right here, make a parenthesis, and then everything that we did here, we're just going to do right here inside of our parentheses. So we're just going to kind of ignore the 2 right now. So just looking at this, I'm going to take my x and multiply it by both of those. So I have x times x is x squared, and x times -6 is -6x. And then I'm going to take the -3 and multiply it by both of those. And I need to remember that this -3, this negative stays with the 3. So this is a -3 multiplying by both of those. So -3 times x is -3x. And -3 times -6 is a positive 18. So then just like before, I can simplify those two middle ones. I can combine them. So really it's x squared minus 9x plus 18. And then I just need to go back through and remember that I have this 2 here. So I'm going to multiply or distribute that 2 over everything. I'm going to multiply everything in there by 2. So it's really 2x squared minus 18x plus 36. And remember, if this video is going too fast, you can always pause it, try to figure out what's going on, reflect on it, raise your hand, ask a question. Rewind, watch it again to make more sense of it. But remember, it's a video, so you can pause it. Let's look at this one. Again, same thing as before. We're just going to kind of put that -3 out here all by itself, and then not really worry about it for right now. We're just going to look at the 2 factors in here. We're going to multiply both of the terms in the second binomial by the x. So x times x is x squared. X times 7 is 7x. Then we're going to multiply both terms over here by this 2. So 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 7 is 14. And then we're just going to combine those two middle ones. So we have x squared plus 9x plus 14, which is, if you multiply everything by the negative 3, it's going to be negative 3x squared minus 27x minus 42. And then over here, same idea, but this time we're only multiplying. We're going to ignore the 3 out front again. We're only multiplying each of these terms in the second binomial by one term over here, x. This is actually easier. So we're just going to multiply by x, for both of those. So x times x is x squared, and x times negative 4 is negative 4x. And there is no second number over here to multiply by. So we're just going to leave it like that, except for we just have to multiply the 3 through. So we have 3x squared minus 12x. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and do these same ones with the box method. So now if we look at the box method, all it is just, we're going to make a box. If you have been in biology, this might seem very similar to you because it's going to end up being like a Punnett square. And because each of these terms have 2 terms and 2 terms, we're going to make a 2 by 2 box. So it's 2 boxes across and 2 boxes down. Then we're going to take this first term up here, this x plus 1 and x and then a positive 1. And then down the side, we're going to do the second term, x and a negative 5. It doesn't matter if you do that. You could do x and a negative 5 up here and an x and a positive 1 down the side. The order doesn't matter as long as you keep the terms together. Like the x, there has to be an x with a 1 and there has to be an x with a negative 5. So then what you do is, just like in biology with the Punnett squares, you combine the 2 terms lined up with each box with the by multiplying. So here in this box, it's lined up with the first one here and the top one here. So x times x gives you x squared. This 1 over here is lined up with this x and this 1. So that's 1 times x is 1x. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. And then 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. So then you're going to notice that these 2 terms here in this diagonal in the middle go together. So you actually have x squared minus 4x, because you can combine those, you can add them together, minus 5. And that gives you the same answers we had up here. We just got in a slightly different way. So now let's try these. Just like before, we're going to kind of ignore this 2 out front, and we're going to make our box. I always put the first one across the top, but you can put it on the side if you want. I do it across the top, so I have x and a negative 3, and an x and a negative 6. And then I multiply, so x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. X times negative 6 is negative 6x. Negative 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. I can combine these 2 like terms when I write it, so I have x squared from the first box, negative 9x from those 2 boxes, minus 18. But now I just have to remember to go back through and multiply by that 2 right there. So this whole thing is going to get multiplied by 2. So I really have 2x squared minus 18x minus 36, which again is the same thing as up there. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. Negative 6 times negative 3 is a positive 18. Sorry about that. So that would be a positive 18, so that would be 2 times positive 18 is a positive 36. Sorry about that, because they should end up being the same. Now for this one. Just like before, I'm going to ignore that negative 3 for now and just focus on my 2 factors here. So I have x plus 2 and x plus 7. So I have x squared, 2x, 7x, and 14. Then I'm going to write it out with these two combined. So I have x squared plus 9x plus 14. But then I have to multiply everything by that negative 3. So I don't want to forget about that. So I have negative 3x squared minus 27x minus 42. Which again is the same as up there. This last one, because my first term only has one term, like my first factor here only has one term in it, I'm not going to make a 2 by 2 box. Instead, I'm going to make a 1 by 2 box. Okay, so we have an x times x minus 4. So combining the same way, though, by multiplying, x times x is x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. So you end up with x squared minus 4x. And then I'm going to go back and multiply by this 3 out front again, just like before. So I have 3x squared minus 12x. Again, same. So there are two ways that you can convert from factored form to standard form. You can either use the distributive property or the box method. They both get you to the same place in the end. It's just really a matter of preference. If you like to have your numbers all in a straight line like that, and then you can combine like terms the way that is kind of more maybe like mathy and algebraic, that's one great way to do it. Or if you would rather have it more visual, so you can kind of organize your thoughts maybe a little bit easier, then this is another great option. So it's, again, pure preference. You can pick whichever way you like better, and you can do it that way. So now you can go ahead and get ready to practice.